Hi there. This is Eduardo. Um, I I am the guy who writes for Game Press and everything like that. And IDGT asked me to go over the tier list, so here I am. So I guess I'm gonna start off with. I'm gonna start off with the tier list. This is obviously taking boosts into account. So this is your standard, stereotypical arena advantage tournaments. Although sometimes, like skill tournaments and unboosted settings are taken into account as well. Like that's also kind of factored in. So we look at like boost spreads, everything like that. So, and how creatures are boosted, different types of boost spreads. Because sometimes some creatures want to be fast and physical, or sometimes they want to be like bulkier and more stally. But that's what we did with this list. So it's pretty much the first type of it list of its type, of its kind, and this is what we're doing. We're going here from here. So we're gonna start with the tyrants. So there are 2 hive tyrants. Last time there were 3. One dropped for a specific reason, but this time around we got 2. Phorurex and Skoonasaurus. These 2 are the absolute kings. No questions asked. Yeah, if you wanna reach the top of the top, you can't run a team without them. Almost, it's very hard. Let's start with Phorurex. So, Phorurex essentially has instant rampage with cunning effects. That's a lot because it's just better instant rampage. And instant rampage, before Phorurex was even introduced, was already pretty much one of the best moves in the game. You got a priority rampage. And then when you combine that with like 1600 attack boosted now, you're going to reach crazy numbers. And that's priority turn 1. So that's already a lot. And then, not to mention, you also give Phorurex critical sidestep, which gives it a guaranteed critical hit. So now you're dealing with even more damage. Like, if you watch, obviously, if you're watching this, you're watching IDGT's videos, you're gonna see that his is doing well over 6,000 damage. That's insane. And then you also have Daring Strike, which isn't the best basic move around. There are much better basic moves to choose from, but when it comes to a basic move, it's definitely not bad. It is pretty solid. You also, again, critical sidestep, which is basically better sidestep. And then you have lethal rampage and run. And while it's not, it isn't arguably the best running move, it kind of is the best running move. Because you have a rampage, first of all, because why not? Let's give it another rampage. You have essentially lethal wound effects. You can bypass armor, you shatter shields. This thing does so many different things just by itself, and it's also got the flippin' rending attack when it swaps in, and it's a shame because there are some creatures that this thing essentially makes obsolete with that move, and it pins them too. And then when you try to swap out on it, no, you have on escape obstruction, which stuns you, pins you, screws you. And then you have Skoonasaurus. Oh, Skoonasaurus. You just boost the heck out of attack and HP, maybe 1 or 2 speed. That's really it. To maybe outspeed other Skoonasaurus. And you just need to click Rampage, Impact, and you're gonna kill everything. Not much, unless you're like Spinoconstrictor, maybe like the Bear Deer, Arctovasilas, or like Indotaurus. Those kinds of creatures. Even then, Skoonasaurus is easily able to probably bring a lot of those back. Spinoconstrictor is probably one of the best answers to it, but you could constantly use it. You could use it as a swap in. You could use it as a lead, a closer. It is incredibly versatile. And I don't know why Ludia thought that giving it the full decelerating counter was a quote-unquote nerf. It was a freaking buff. Because now it's able to kill more stuff. But those 2, best in the game. 100%. Now let's move on to the low tyrants, shall we? We have Antarctovenator. Alright, this one is the one that always has been getting brought out over and over and over again. And I'm going to say right now, it's the weakest in the tier, 100%. It's the weakest. But it is still good. Like, if you skedoodle on down over to the elite tiers, you're going to see, like Maxima, Dio, Intellinia, Spix. No, those things are not as good as Antarctovenator. It's got options. It's actually, out of this whole tier, it's got the most options probably out of all these creatures. Because, like Gorgotrebax, it's only got cunning options. Hydra Boa, it's got really only... It can't really deal with armor that well. I mean, it's got bleed, but if you got armor and you can cleanse that bleed right away, it's not doing that much. Indotaurus, you got, Indotaurus actually has pretty good options. Like Spinoconstrictor, you come up against a wall that's immune to bleed. Like Monolorhino, you're done for. But Arctovanator, it can hurt anything in this tier, actually. Yeah, looking at it, it's like Monolorhino can wall Spinoconstrictor. Testacornibus could absolutely wall like Gorgotrebax. But Antarctovenator can't get walled or like stalled out or done like that by anything. It's always gonna do something. It's gonna do something pretty well. It's gonna either put them in setup range or it's gonna kill them outright. It's really only a one-time usage, but it could be used as a swapper. It could take down tanks, cunnings, resilience. Fierce. It's so diverse. And that nullify encounter is also pretty darn good too. Now, Arctovasilas. This thing is easily the most subject to debate because no one has it yet. Except those people who did like beta tests or whatever. I don't know. But no one has it. So, as for now, we're keeping it here. We know it's probably easily Tyrant. But for now, it's just going to stay here because we're not fully confident in it yet. There are some definite issues with it. For example, like especially compared to its parent Testacornibus, it can't heal. The only way it can heal is whether or not you decide to swap. So you can decide whether or not it heals. And with the counter power heal nerf, it's not healing as much. Also not as bulky, and it's also like much slower as well. So that needs to be taken into account. But paper versus practice. Gorgotrebax, probably the best pure cunning in the game. Actually, yeah, it is. It's easily the best pure cunning in the game. Because it's got great turn 1 options, it's got great revenge options, it's got good stats across the board, good resistances across the board, it's got good matchups across the board, because it's helping keep Fierce under its thumb, thus allowing like these resilience like Testacornibus to come out and play. It's fast, it uses speed ups, it can deal with a lot of the meta, like Indotaurus, Spinoconstrictor, Phorurex, all those things. It's pretty good. It's not the best thing around, but it's pretty good. Another one that was also here comes the other one that was brought up a lot. Hydra Boa. It's one of the best closers you can find. The Constricting Rampage is absolutely insane. I must say I'm not a fan of Fabled Fangs. I think it's essentially a worse Toxic Coils in pretty much almost every way. I do like Instant Nullifying Strike. That's a good move. Alert Slither, good move. It's got decent resistances. But, I mean, I would say it's definitely on the lower end of this tier. But I still think it's definitely worthy of this tier, especially with Constricting Rampage, the Ferocity counter. Fabled Fangs actually is still, despite the fact that I'm not a fan of it, I must say it's still a really good move. Other than that, that's all I really have. But this is easily a Tyrant creature. Like, it is not high elite. I will say that right now. And I will stand by that. Indotaurus, easy Tyrant. Not a high Tyrant because it does run into some issues with things like rend resist, and it can be played around, and especially stunned, which is a big no. That's a big no right there. Also, it's lack of like immunities. That's a big one, and that's easily what holds it back. Also, it does rely a bit too much on RNG to be considered high tyrant, like especially with dodging and cloak and all that. But it's a great lead. It'll see you thick and thin. It's a great creature to use. Rhino and Paracanthops. No one calls it Parasauthops. That's a stupid name. But Rhino and Paracanthops. Those two are the swappers, besides Phorurex. And I will say that unboosted Monolorhino I find to be better. But boosted, no. Paracanthops wins. Monolorhino, it has like physical actual bulk, while Paracanthops just does not die with its heals. Although Monolorhino can come in and out much more than Paracanthops, thanks to like pin resistance. It's got better immunities and all that. Paracanthops is more offensive and plays more like the more stally game kind of. And they need to fix that revenge move, because last I heard it's still broken. I don't know why they can't fix it. I heard it's just a easy, like literally recode the move the other way around, and it'll take like 3 minutes. I don't know, but both of them very good. And I would say that the advantage goes to like Paracanthops, but Monolorhino still Tyrant. It's been Tyrant since 2.0, and there's a definite reason as to why. Scorpios Rex Gen3. That's a easy top tier. It makes so many creatures pretty much irrelevant. Makes creatures like Trico, Dio, like Thylacotator. What else is there? If you're slower than it, you can get stunned, and you're weak to bleed. You're dead. Toxic Close is easily the best move in the game. I would say that. I would say like the instant cautious rampage, Phorex's rampage, does give it a run for its money, but that's because it's also put on a creature with high base damage. Like you give a creature 1,000 attack and you give it Toxic Close or the instant distracting rampage. Toxic Close just does so much more. It nullifies so much of the meta. Also, it's got the critical ambushes. It's got Cunning Rampage. It just does so much. It's easily Tyrant. Spinoconstrictor, again, another easy one. Easy pick. No questions asked. Constant bleeding. You boost that thing. Like I know IDGTs is pretty good around like 7,000. That thing is able to take a bit, and with evasion, distraction, and the constant bleeding, and also the fact that because back in the day, like 1.14, everything was immune to bleed, and this thing kind of stunk. Like Telemoth, Gemini Titan, Mammalian, 3 best creatures in the game, all immune to bleed. So poor Spinoconstrictor. But nowadays, literally, only Monolorhino in this tier is immune to bleed. So yeah, you have like Gorgotrebax and Paracanthops with the 75% resist, but even so, they're still vulnerable to bleed. And when that fails, it also has Precise Rampage. And it's also pretty easy to boost. You just boost HP and attack, because you want to actually be slower than Testacornibus, which we will get to now, but in a bit. But you just want to hit hard with Spinoconstrictor, bleed, stall. And also it's got the on escape, which is okay. Could have been better, but it's not bad. Testacornibus. This was the one that dropped, and for good reason. Why? Well, I use it, and I must say that I've noticed a bit of a drop in its overall viability. The counter power heal, I think, is what easily tipped it over the nerve to that, because now it's just healing. The heal isn't that amazing anymore. It's still something you should absolutely respect, but it is definitely not where it once was. Compared to compared to Phorurex and Skoonasaurus, it's not there anymore. Like if it had the regular counter power heal, I would say it could still definitely be considered for up there, but not anymore, thanks. And then you also have like Arctovasilas, which can kill it. You kind of have like all these other creatures that are being introduced, and the creatures that it counters being nerfed. Kind of like you also have Indotaurus. You have a couple other things like being in where here we go. So like although Monolorhino dropping in usage, I will say is kind of helping it, but overall, it's just still a great creature, easily one of the highest creatures in this tier. Whether or not Arctovasilas like kind of forces it down more, still we don't know yet. But after all that's happened to it, we felt no, it's not high Tyrant anymore. Still really good, but not high anymore.